Back to one of our top stories, Maui's misery. As devastating as the fires are, there are warning signs to decipher concerning how Hawaii navigates its future. And that's what we want to talk about right now with climate scientist Michael Mann. He joins me now. He's the director for the Center for Science, Sustainability, and the Media at the University of Pennsylvania. And he's also the author of Our Fragile Moment, How Lessons from Earth's Past Can Help Us Survive the Climate Crisis. And let's just get right to this, Professor Mann. I mean, how did climate change play a role in what took place in Maui? Is it too soon to put a pin on that? What have you been able to decipher?
Jim, it's good to be with you.
Yeah.
And no, it isn't. I mean, we can talk about how various attributes of climate change sort of laid the groundwork for what played out. First of all, there's a long-term trend towards drying in that region. It's been getting drier, less precipitation. Temperature has been increasing as it has around the planet, but that means more evaporation of moisture from soil. So you put those two things together, you're going to get worse drought. And so there's a trend towards worse drought. And what we saw, in fact, was extreme drought in parts of the island that were impacted, where those wildfires spread rapidly and did so much damage. And there's another ingredient, which is that the winds that helped, for example, knock down those power lines and help spread the fire, those very strong winds were related to a high pressure system to the north and a hurricane, a very low pressure hurricane that traveled to the south. That hurricane intensified very quickly on very warm waters in the eastern Pacific. That meant that those winds were stronger, that those pressure differences were stronger, the winds were stronger. An estimate that was done that the winds were at least 5 to 6% stronger because of that hurricane. And that hurricane intensified so quickly because of those warm waters. Those waters are so warm in part because of an El Nino event, but also because of the large-scale warming of the planet from carbon pollution, from the burning of fossil fuels.
And I mean, so much loss, it happens so quickly. Given what is taking place with climate change around the world, and Hawaii, as beautiful as it is obviously not immune from the devastating effects of climate change. Should Hawaii have been better prepared? Should they have seen this coming? How did this unbelievable, just unimaginable devastation, how did it take place so quickly, and could it have been avoided in any way? Or was this just one of those situations where the right ingredients were present for something as bad as this to happen?
Yeah, we can second guess some of the decisions that were made, and that discussion will, I'm sure go on for weeks, and I'm not sure I have any special, expertise to speak to some of those larger questions. But what I can say is that Hawaii has to recognize that it is dealing with an increased level of threat. Even regions, places that we think of as tropical paradises. Hawaii is one of my favorite places to vacation. But these tropical paradises, we're seeing climate change impact them. No place on Earth, even those areas that we think of as paradises, including Paradise, California, sadly, are, have been free from the impacts of climate change, from the deleterious impacts of climate change. And that's what we've seen play out in this tropical paradise. So there's a new level of risk that Hawaii needs to deal with. Ultimately, there are steps that we can take to try to adapt to this drier environment, land use policies, zoning, issues about how we deal with invasive grasses that might have contributed to this problem. There are things that we can do to try to increase our resilience, but there is no amount of adaptation that will prepare us for what's to come if we fail to deal with the underlying problem, which is the warming of the planet from the burning of fossil fuels and the increase in carbon pollution that's resulting from that.
And one of the things that we've been talking about, Michael, is this prospect that land developers are going to try to come in and exploit the situation in Lahaina. And obviously, the state of Hawaii has to be mindful of that when it comes to the effects of climate change, because things are only going to get worse. The developers can't just be allowed to go in there and do what they want.
Yeah, it's a great point, Jim, and it sort of underscores the issue of climate justice and the need for us to deal with the climate crisis in a just manner, because climate change is impacting sort of our sociopolitics, our socioeconomics, and in this case, this disaster. And there are a number of factors that came together, but climate change was an important part of it. Now what we're seeing is in the wake of this climate change, driven disaster, that there's special interests that are coming in to try to exploit that. And who's going to lose out? It's going to be the downtrodden, those with the least resources, those with the least wealth. And so it really sort of underscores the fact that climate is a matter of justice. Climate action is a matter of justice.
All right, Michael Mann, great to talk to you as always. Thanks for the time. We'll have you back. Really appreciate it.
You too, Jim. Thanks.